We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do us well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this Rebel Outpost, the home for college football sickles, to help us keep the light on. Don't support us with a donation. Just hit that $sign where you make a comment, and I'll get to you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Everybody is welcome into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Keith Jackson Parkway, Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. As we've often say here at Peek Around the Corner, keep your head on a swivel. Make sure you are subscribed and have those notifications turned on, because we can come on live at any time. You don't know when we're coming next. You don't know if it's going to be a morning show like today. We could come on again later on very easily. Very easily, we might have to do a second live show later today. So keep your head on a swivel. And because PATC is, you never know when you're going to see us once again. Last night, or not last night, in the afternoon, we did a pre-NFL draft. We had a lot of fun. We went through a CBS Sports mock draft where it did not have Shedeur Sanders being in the being drafted in the first round. And sure enough, Shedeur Sanders was not drafted in the first round. I said it yesterday, and I'm going to say it today. I get the concerns over Shedeur Sanders. As I said yesterday, I would have Cam Ward and Jackson Dart ahead of Shedeur Sanders. But I think Shedeur Sanders is going to be a starting NFL quarterback. He's worth at least a second round pick, right? I think he was worth a first round pick, to be honest with you. Even with his concerns that people have about him, his accuracy and his toughness, I think that gave him, I think he has he's going to have the opportunity to be starting quarterback in the NFL. Maybe not year one. And it's up to him. It's up to him. But Jackson Dart, yeah, I think the New York Football Giants had a remarkable draft. A remarkable draft. We're going to go through the draft results. It's only going to take us a few minutes. We're going to go through it all in the first round. And then we're going to be talking about Ross Dellinger's article that came out just a little bit ago. The discussions, the negotiations, all around the college football playoff format for 2026 and beyond. It might be. It could be. I still don't think so. But if we're going to go through the article of Ross Dellinger, I might have to eat a cheeseburger live. If the Big Ten gets denied, if the Big Ten gets stopped, if the Big Ten acquiesces, if the Big Ten compromises, if the Big Ten bends the knee on the 4 automatic qualifiers, the 4 auto bids that they desire, that they have targeted, that they have pushed, if the Big Ten actually gets denied on the 4 auto bids that we at Peek Around the Corner have said it was a fait accompli, because of multiple deals I have made with multiple people in the PATC family on multiple different live shows, I will eat a cheeseburger live. For those who do not know, I revolt against mixing cheese and meat together. Having a cheeseburger is an abomination. It's the cheesification of America. It is undeniably the worst thing that has happened here in this country in the last 50 years. Well, that's not accurate. When it comes to food, it's accurate. When it comes to food, it's accurate. But if the Big Ten does not have 4 automatic bids going into 2026 and beyond, if that becomes official, when it becomes official, I'm going to eat a cheeseburger live. And it's going to take the whole show to get it done. Because it's gross. It's, we've gone through this. The word is aversion. Yes. That's the word. That's the word I'm looking for. Look, this show is not going to be about cheeseburgers, okay? It's not going to be about cheeseburgers. But I'm telling you guys, you've all been brainwashed. All of you. Do you know why you put that cheese on your hamburger? Do you know why you do that? We've talked about it this before. The reason why you do that is because you do not season your hamburger, your meat, your ground beef. You do not season it enough. Put more salt on it, for God's sake. Don't put a... That's why you're putting a salty cheese on your burger. You don't put it on your steak. You don't put it on your filet of fish. You don't put it on your pork chop. But you feel that you got to put it on your hamburger because you're not seasoning it enough. And you've been brainwashed by the people of Wisconsin. The great cheesification of them. Anyways, we're going to go through Ross Dellinger's article. If the Big Ten does not get 4 auto bids and all this, we are going to take the big L here at Peek Around the Corner. And we'll get into more of that later. Let's do a roll call. And then we're going to go through the NFL results. And then we're going to go through Ross Dellinger's article, AMAC is in the house. The Cornhusker, Skaven, yes. Hello, Mad Gopher. Hello, Mad Cornhusker. AMAC is here. Mr. Monkey says, D5 Terps, Jeff Morgan, Mr. Mountaineer, Old Dad, Mr. Seminole, Caleb Ramirez, Buckeye, Rob Allen, Let's Go Tiger, SEC invite as soon as possible, CFB Plus morning. Good morning, Rock Chalk, Vox Quindaro. Good morning to my fellow Flugarian cultists. Les Austin Jr. Big Ten deserves 4 and go blue. Well, thank you, Wolverine, coming on into the house. I appreciate it. I happen to disagree. I do not like beyond the conference champion. I do not like these auto bids at all. What we report in Peek Around the Corner fashion here at College Football Peek Around the Corner is different than my wants and needs as a college football fan. I don't want any changes. I want the 12-team format. I want it exactly what we had it last year. And it looks like what we're going to have this year. I finally got what I wanted. But now I'm going to lose it. There's no question this thing's going to go to 14. It's going to go to 16. And again, we're going to go through the Ross Dellinger article. And from everything that I've heard, and it's been a lot, the Big Ten's pursuit of 4 auto bids have come mainly, at least at first, driven by their media partners and then the people inside the Big Ten. They want 3 play-in games. They want the option of having at least 3 play-in games. They want to create more value out of their conference schedule during the season because of the auto bids, having 4 auto bids. That means 6 teams are going to be in the play-in games, probably. That means there's going to be 8, 9, 10 Big Ten teams in a play-in conference race going into the last 2 weeks of the season. They want all of that. The Big Ten wants that. And they're trying to... But there is great pushback from the Big 12 and the ACC but you know, if they go to auto bids, and they're going to go to auto bids, it just depends on the number, right? For each conference. It's hard to imagine. when the playoffs go to 16 teams, it's hard to imagine, and this is not what I want, I'm just saying it's hard to imagine that the SEC and the Big Ten are not going to be able to grab half of those auto bids. I mean, they grab more than half of the distribution money. I mean, together, I'm talking. So we believe the Big Ten was going to get 4 and the SEC was going to get 4 in the world of a 14-team playoffs. Now, again, we're going to go through an article, Ross Dellinger. It looks like that might be a little vulnerable right now. The Big Ten might not get what they want. We shall see. Very interesting. Very interesting. I did not get my hair cut. I need my haircut, but I haven't got my haircut. Friends Call Me Sean is in the house. Stephen Clark, Dante's Inferno Purgatory goes Scarlet Knights. D5 Terps, legendary. I think you might be talking about Shedeur Sanders. The Architect is in the house. Bo Weevil, Saved by Grace. Hey, Greg the Gold. Saved by Grace is a genius. Saved by Grace is so far ahead of the rest of you. Saved by Grace absolutely knows that Greg the Cooler is no more. That I'm going to have a winning percentage against the spread this year of over 60%. Unlike my 40% of the last 3 years. Saved by Grace is a genius. Dante's Inferno Purgatory, Stephen Vitt, John Dry's in the house. Who else is here? Thomas Moss, I'm hungry now, thanks. Daniel Gygax, Mr. Mountaineer, good morning, Daniel. Nice to see you in the house. Appreciate it. Thomas Moss. Curtis Brown is here. Bill G. Good morning. Good morning, sir. Cat's Claw 44. What's up? What is down? Cat's Claw 44. Jago Blue. Okay. So let's get in. First of all, let's get to the NFL results real quick. NFL results. We're just going to go through them real quick. We want to get to the Ross Dellinger article, but we can't just ignore what happened last night, especially when we did a pre-draft show at Peek Around the Corner. Number 1, Cam Ward. Cam Ward, number 1. Let me pop this up a little bit here. There we go. Cam Ward going number 1. I don't like it that high. Hold on. There we go. Cam Ward, Tennessee Titans, number 1. Number 2, Jackson Jaguars move up in the draft. Make a trade with the Cleveland Browns. The Jaguars get Travis Hunter. Well, that's going to help. That's going to help sell some tickets at least for Jacksonville, which they need. They got a really good football player in Travis Hunter. And now I think the Cleveland Browns had a fantastic first-round pick. We're going to get to that in a second. But I'm interested in the Buckeye Brown fans in the chat room. Did you agree with what the Cleveland Browns did last night? Abdul Carter, the New York Giants. They did not go for a quarterback. At least not in this spot. But they got back into the first round late into the night. New England Patriots, Will Campbell. Mason Graham, Cleveland Browns. I talked about it yesterday, the day before. There was mock drafts that had Mason Graham out of the top 10. Holy smokes. No way. Mason Graham is a top 10 pick. So, look, I don't know. I mean, the Cleveland Browns got themselves a Michigan Wolverine player. But I think the Cleveland Browns are celebrating. Mason Graham is the real deal Holyfield. Great pick. Great pick by the Cleveland Browns. Number 6, Ashton Genty, the Raiders. That's how all the mock drafts had it. Armand Membu, the offensive tackle from Missouri who lit it up in the combines. Lit it up. The New York Jets got their man. McMillan, T-Mac, Carolina Panthers, first wide receiver off the board. The New Orleans Saints, were they going to pick Shedeur Sanders? Was this the spot for the Saints? No. They went with the big old tackle, Calvin Banks, Texas Longhorns. The Chicago Bears picked Colston Loveland. And that is what the mock draft told us yesterday, CBS Sports mock draft. I said it yesterday on the pre-draft show. I said it on my X account. I'll say it this morning. Loveland is a very good football player, and he's going to have a good football career. But he ain't no Tyler Warren. And why he was drafted ahead of Tyler Warren, I do not know. Tyler Warren graded out as the better blocker. Tyler Warren has a much better radius. Tyler Warren is an absolute beast. Loveland is a very good tight end. Very good tight end. Why the Bears pick Loveland over Warren? Let me know in the chat. I mean, they must have a logical reason for it. Let me know in the chat what that is. Michael Williams, 49ers. Tyler Booker, the Cowboys. Guard, Alabama. Kenneth Grant, the other DT. The big defensive tackle from the Michigan Wolverines go to the Miami Dolphins. Tyler Warren goes to the Colts. Indianapolis gets their man, Jalen Walker, from Georgia Bulldogs, goes to the Atlanta Falcons. Walter Nolan, defensive tackle, Mississippi, goes to the Arizona Cardinals. Shamar Stewart, who never has put up the production at Texas A&M. A beast of an athlete. The Cincinnati Bengals, they're gambling a little bit here. The Bengals are gambling just a little bit. Seattle Seahawks take their interior O-lineman. They get the Bison, Gray Zabel. Emeka Egbuka, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wide receiver, Ohio State. Jadai Barron, cornerback of Texas, had a great season last year. Derek Harmon, defensive tackle, Oregon, going to the Steelers. The Chargers get the big running back, Marion Hampton, North Carolina Tar Heels. Matthew Golden to the Green Bay Packers. He celebrated with the Green Bay Packer fans last night. Another Longhorn goes in the draft. The Vikings pick up Donovan Jackson. They did not get Malachi Starks, which I went down at number 27 to the Ravens. Donovan Jackson, guard, Buckeyes. Jackson Dart, there he is, New York Giants. The Giants got back in the first round, picked up the quarterback. Ole Miss, the New York Giants did an excellent job, in my opinion. James Pierce, Atlanta Falcons, edge rusher, Tennessee. Malachi Stark, safety, Georgia, goes to the Ravens. Mr. Williams, defensive tackle, another Buckeye, goes to the Lions. The offensive tackle from Oregon, Josh Connolly, all the mock drafts had him going somewhere late in the first round, and exactly what happened. Maxwell Hairston, cornerback, Kentucky. Jahad Campbell, the freak athlete. Unbelievable athlete. If he becomes the football player that he is the athlete, the Philadelphia Eagles got themselves another great player in the first round. And number 32, Josh Simmons, Ohio State offensive tackle. Another offensive lineman going in the NFL draft, Buckeyes first round. So let me know in the chat room who did not get drafted, who you thought should have gotten drafted. And of course, in the quarterback position, we did not see Shedeur Sanders. Where is he going to go? Is he going to go in the second round? Jalen Milroe did not get drafted. Where is he going to end up? There's a few other quarterbacks out there who have a third round grade, fourth round grade. Where do you think they're all going? Let me know in the chat room or with the phone calls later on. Let's get into... Thank you, Rod Nix. Appreciate it. Let's get into Ross Dillinger's article. D5 Terps loves the Raven picks. Saban Loveland's ability to create separation in routes. The Bungles' defense was awful last year. Jeremy Nork, Warren is the number one tight end. Yeah, I got it. The Minnesota Wild won last night, by the way. They're up 2-1 in this series. Sanders will go to the Browns at 33 or 35, Rob Ellen says. Rod Nix, my Falcons were very aggressive last night. Fingers crossed. Okay. Here we go. Again, putting up the title screen of this live show. The Big Ten may not receive the 4 auto bids it wants. Holy smokes. If true, PATC takes a big L. I would eat a big old cheeseburger lied. And Petiti did not get what he wanted. Very interesting. Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports. We're going to go through this article. I'm going to give you my take on it. And then I want to hear your take on it in the chat and with your phone calls. Grapevine, Texas. On the 4th floor, Gaylord, Texan Resort. The conference commissioners, 3 hours. 3 hours. Same room. Trying to decide what the heck is going to happen with the playoff field. On the final day of the 3 days, the meetings here this week, commissioners walk through a mock selection, getting a first-hand look at the data and process used by committee members. Perhaps the last gasp from the CFP to show these decision makers that the committee's role should not be de-emphasized under any new playoff format. Boy. I don't know if I should spend any time on this or not. It's obvious. It's obvious on April 24th, yesterday, Thursday, April 24th. It's obvious they're still taking this wide view of everything. Like they're even giving the committee the opportunity to explain how they made their selections. They're bringing in new ideas. They talked about new ideas, which this article goes through. It's still a wide scope. The input, the considerations, the options, it's really, really wide right now. It still is. Very interesting. Why is it still a wide scope? Was that always the plan from the Big Ten and the SEC? Or is it or is it just, look, we've got to compromise. We've got to compromise. We can't just ram it on through. Which is it? Is it just the SEC and the Big Ten getting along to try to get along before they put down the hammer? Or is it a true, look, Let's figure this out together with Phillips and Yormark. There was a lot of new learning, CFP Executive Director Rich Clark said. Again, we're still in the wide scope phase here. And they got to make a decision pretty quick. CFP Executive Director Rich Clark said, they've got to see the depth that committee members go with the process. They also gave us some feedback to help us think through how we could improve the committee. Again, Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports. From this week's annual spring meetings, no decisions were made on the three most important questions of any future playoff format. Number one, how many teams are in the bracket? No decision. How are the teams selected for the bracket? No decision. And how are the teams seeded in the bracket? No decision. While the answers remain incomplete, the pathway to those answers is becoming more clear. Number one, there continues to be a desire from both the commissioners and television partner ESPN to expand the bracket to at least 14 teams. Is 16 still on the table? Yes. Now I want to stop right here. Okay. Is there a desire to go to 14? Yeah, it's going to go to 14. Is it going to end up going to 16? I think so. Yeah. How easy is it to flip from 14 to 16? When the decisions are finally made, that's going to be a very interesting thing to read out here from all of this. But I think at the end of the day, I think we're all going to, and I could end up being wrong, but I think at the end of the day, when they figure out the 26 format, I think we're all going to see a really easy, quick pathway to 16 teams. For a couple of reasons. One, it's going to help satisfy going to 16 itself greases the skids for compromise. You know, for the Big Ten, it's easier to get 4 auto bids. There's going to be more at-large bids. There's going to, G5, I think in itself helps get everybody on board. 16 teams also helps with more on-campus first-round games. In fact, you would have 8 of them. Now, it's going to be difficult to schedule those 8 games. But the top teams, the top-rated team, top couple rated teams, they're not going to have a bye, but they're going to have that home game. They're going to have that home game on campus like the other top teams would enjoy. They missed out on that last year. Again, I think this is eventually going to 16 teams. It may not happen right away, but it's going to get there. Also, we talk about the Machiavellian aspect of the Big Ten and the SEC. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat this, so I'm just gonna say it. Going to 16 greases the skids for that eventual SEC Big Ten expansion. So in many different ways, I think there is an inertia that it's going to get to 16 pretty quickly here. Maybe not in 26, but quickly after 26. And again, if you have auto bids, when it comes to 16 teams, if you're going to have auto bids per conference, the Big Ten, and the SEC are going to get they're going to get theirs. They're going to get 4 each, at least. I mean, that's just the way it is. Now, I think they're going to get it at 14. And again, if they don't in 2026, I got to eat a cheeseburger here live. Let's go back to the article. Number 2, leadership at the Big Ten and the SEC, the leagues that hold the decision-making power on the format starting in 26, continue to socialize a format that gives them more automatic qualifiers than any other conference. What's become known as the 4-4-2-2-1 format, granting 4 automatic qualifiers to the top 4 finishers in both the SEC and the Big Ten, 2 each of the ACC and the Big 12, 1 of the group of 6, and 1 at large in a 14-team model. To be clear, within the CFP meeting room, the Big Ten leadership has been most vocal about such a format. So last year on September 9th, we broke that news. We said the Big Ten going for 3 automatic qualifiers. No, they're going for 4. The title of that show is something like The Big Ten is Getting Radical. Something like that. That was the title of that live show. You can go back in the library and look at it, or go ahead and watch it. Because we were told that the Big Ten was shooting for the moon. They wanted 4 auto bids. A lot of that directed by their media partners. And of course, they've been the loudest people in the room. Now, if you read at the top, it says, leadership at the Big Ten and the SEC, the leagues that hold the decision-making power, continue to socialize this format of 4-4-2-2-1. So while everything else is being talked about, certain options, pushback on the Big Ten. The Big Ten continues to push this format. Are they going to get it? Now again, we have PATC said it's a fait accompli that they're going to get it. And if they're not going to get it in 2026, we would eat a cheeseburger live on this show. If you go through the rest of this article, which we're going to, it sounds like it's in jeopardy. The Big Ten might not get what they want. But before we get into that, again, according to Ross Dellinger, the Big Ten and the SEC continue to socialize this format. The Big Ten more than the SEC. The Big Ten wants those free playing games. And other reasons. Number 3, the selection committee needs an overhaul, or at the very least, some tweaks to their decision-making process, specifically as it relates to the strength of schedule metric. How will it end? How will it all end? Pepper Jack on that burger? Patrick Bear? Come on, man. I have no idea what I'm going to do. We'll get to that. I will bear that cross if I have to. But I don't even want to think about that. Not right now. We're not going to sit here and choose the cheese right now because I got to get through this live show. I do not want to get sick. Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. How will it all end? PATC money shot number 1 of the article. That's up to 2 conferences, says one high-ranking college administrator. So while there's compromise going on or talk of compromise and bringing in other ideas, it still comes down to those 2 conferences. If they agree, if they decide to push it on through, they're going to push it on through, that 4-4-2-2-1-1. But maybe they won't. Maybe they won't. We're going to get to it in a moment here. Right now, the fact, PATC money shot number 2 of the article. The fact that the SEC and the Big Ten haven't rammed through the multi-AQ of 4-4-2-2-1 format is telling. Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports. Despite work on the model from each of their conference staffs and wide support from their athletic directors and presidents and their media partners, the conferences have yet to formally take procedural steps to adopt the format. We're sitting here on April 25th. Despite the model from each of their conference staffs, SEC, Big Ten, wide support from their athletic directors, SEC, Big Ten, and presidents, SEC, Big Ten, the conferences, SEC, Big Ten, have yet to formally take the procedural steps to adopt the format. So look, it's either they really they feel that they really have to compromise, maybe with governance, maybe they're going to get something else in return to step off the 4-4-2-2 format. Or maybe it's the Big Ten and the SEC just playing this game of we're going to include everybody, input ideas, and then at the end they're going to do the 4-4-2-2-1-1 format. It may be a sign. Is compromise afoot? Do the two conferences fear public backlash in adopting such a lopsided playoff model? Do the two leagues want to prevent further disadvantaging the Big 12 and the ACC? The commissioners of the four power leagues, Sankey, Phillips, Yormark, Petitti, met separately here as they often do. After the day-long meetings with the other FBS commissioners, the four of them held a dinner on Wednesday night, capping a fiercely busy day with more work, talk over wine and steaks. Wine and steaks. Yormark, Phillips, Sankey, and Petitti, wine and steaks. And there ain't no cheese on those steaks. During Wednesday's CFP meetings, Clark introduced a new playoff format geared towards striking a compromise between the Big Ten's multi-AQ model and the existing 12-team format that features 7 at-large spots. Within the format, conferences would be ranked by a selection committee using a data-driven system, such as non-conference winning percentage, previous playoff success. The highest-ranked conference would receive 4 AQs. The second would get 3. The third would get 2, and so on, with one spot reserved for the best G Group of 6 program, and as many as 3 at-large spots available in a 14-team model. However, that format is expected to receive little to no serious traction. But at least it's something. Again, it's an indication they're going to keep taking new ideas in. They're still at that time here in the process where they're going to talk about other ideas. But earlier in this article, Ross Dellinger reported the Big Ten and the SEC continue to socialize the 4-4-2-2-1-1 model. No one else has brought anything to the table, said one commissioner. The format for 2026 and beyond is tethered to the dilemma over the 25 format. That's right. The CFP executives have yet to decide on the changes to the playoff format that will begin in less than 8 months. They don't got the 25 figured out. It's either going to be the exact same thing as last year, or maybe the change on the straight seeding aspect of it. But again, what is the incentive for the other conferences to agree with the straight seeding, as we're going to hear about right now. The debate over moving to a straight seeding format rages onward. The Big Ten and the SEC commissioners have publicly expressed support for a change to straight seeding. Meeting teams are seeded directly based on the committee's rankings. Right now, the 4 highest ranked conference champions are seeded 1 through 4. However, unlike the 2026 and beyond, any change to this year's playoff takes unanimity from the 11 members. Everyone's got to vote yes on a change, or it's not going to happen. All the commissioners and Notre Dame athletic director. The struggle between the Big Ten and the SEC and the Big 12 and the ACC over any future format also impacts the vote for changes to this year's playoff. Why, after all, would the ACC or the Big 12 vote to put in their schools at a further disadvantage in a straight seeding model without compromise on future formats? It's a negotiating ploy, said one conference leader. Now, I agree. Why would the ACC and the Big 12 vote for that straight seeding for 25 if they don't get a compromise on what the Big Ten and the SEC wants in 2026 and beyond? Why would the ACC and the Big 12 go for that? But let's flip it. Let's flip that. Why would the Big Ten and the SEC be so demanding of the straight seeding of 25, even though it helps them in theory, to compromise on 2026 and beyond? In other words, compromise on the 4 auto bids. I'm not sure. I get both positions, but I'm not sure why the Big Ten and the SEC would go, oh, geez, maybe we should go from 4 auto bids to 3 auto bids so we can get straight seeding in 25. 2025 is just one more year of the current playoff format. The Big Ten and the SEC, I don't think are going to get enough to compromise on, or at least the Big Ten isn't. But I also understand the Big 12 and the ACC. Why would they give on straight seeding for 25 if they're not going to get something big in return for 26 and beyond? Interesting. Clark hinted at this debate during his meetings with reporters on Thursday. We are discussing the format in its entirety, he said. Whatever we do this year will have an impact on 26 and beyond. In other words, are we going to compromise? Are we going to change it up for 25? If we do, then there's going to be some compromise for 26. They're trying not to make decisions in silos. They're trying not to. The Big Ten and the SEC are trying not to make a decision in a silo. That is what Clark is saying. They're trying to do it holistically. Holistically. They don't want to rush just to get a decision out. In previous interviews, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips and Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark have made it clear it must take compromise to get our vote. But what does compromise look like? In previous interviews, Jim Phillips and Yormark said, look, it's going to, to get our vote for it, we need compromise. We need to get something. Unfortunately, the reality is the Big Ten and the SEC does not need Yormark and Phillips votes to get it through. But there is a good argument, and it's being made by many very smart people, that the Big Ten and the SEC, while they don't need compromise, they don't need Yormark Phillips votes to get it through, but the 26 playoff and beyond, it would benefit them if they did get Yormark's and Phillips support. Because it's the great unknown. If the Big Ten and the SEC pushes this through to what they want, a 4-4-2-2-1-1 model, ACC and the Big 12 don't get anything in return, could that flip on the switch to more lawsuits? What could happen? Now, again, this has all been voted on. The voting power, the governance power, when it comes to the playoffs, the Big Ten and the SEC have that power if they combine, if they agree on it. But there's going to be a cost. There's going to be a cost to the Big Ten and the SEC ramming something through that Yormark and Phillips does not want. Is it worth the cost? Again, to be transparent and honest here at Peek Around the Corner, we've always believed since September, it's been a long time, because we've heard from sources that says this is what everybody wants in the Big Ten. They want that 4 automatic qualifiers. They've already gamed all this out. They've got options in front of them. They kind of know what the money agreement's going to be with their media partners. Kind of. They got a range. They've already gamed all this out. It's going to take a lot for the Big Ten to get off the 4 automatic qualifiers spot that they're in. Of course, the one that can push them off that spot is the SEC. The SEC could say, Big Ten, while we agree with you in spirit, we would love that as well. It just ain't worth the cost to us. Let's finish this up, and then I want to add one more thing, and then we're going to get to your phone calls. Commissioners sidestepped that question and most other questions this week in Dallas. Would the SEC and the Big Ten take 3 automatic qualifiers and not 4? Would the field be expanded to 16 in their multi-automatic qualifier format to give other leagues a chance at more at-large spots? Either way, it's clear that there is an effort to compromise on format. The goal: arrive at a straight seeded model in 2025 and a new, more balanced format starting in 26. They don't want to rush just to get a decision out, Clark said. They're not making any of these decisions in isolation. That's why it takes a while. Many moons ago in a live show, we believe eventually this is going to go to 16 playoffs, 16 teams. It's a great... When we find out what this format is, and if it's 14, I think we're going to quickly learn that it's going to be very easy for them to flip to 16. When we get to a 16-team playoff, and it could happen, I think it's going to happen before that. If we get to a 16-team playoff, you can, I think almost everybody can see that it's a lot easier to get everybody on board on this great compromise. A 4-4-2-2-1-1, 4-4-2-2-1-3, three at-large bids, 1 to the G5, 2 to the Big 12, 2 auto bids to the ACC, 4 to the Big 10, 4 to the SEC. You can see how easy that would, not easy, but a lot easier for all that to happen. But if they have to start with a 14-team playoffs, We at Peek Around the Corner still think it's going to be 4 auto bids to the Big Ten, 4 to the SEC. But obviously, with this reporting that we take very seriously, that is vulnerable right now, and I might have to eat a cheeseburger when this becomes official. Patrick Barry says start the grill. One other thing about all this. Then we're going to get to phone calls. I have to say this. I have to say this because this is, again, this is all very sensitive and all that. Stephen Clark says 3 auto bids in a 14-team format in 26, 4 auto bids in a 16-team format in 28. Or, yeah, okay, we'll use that example. That could be how it's played out. That might be how it all plays out. And if it is played out that way, we at Peek Around the Corner will have to take the L. I'll eat the cheeseburger. Because we believe it's going to be 4 automatic bids for the Big Ten and the SEC right out of the gate. This is what I got to get out here. All of this is happening. Now, we've talked about what we believe is going to happen in the future when it comes to the ACC losing some of their top brand schools. We have said a number of times, even though it gets misreported other places, what we've said. We have said a number of times that it's the horse in the cart. You can't put the cart in front of the horse. All of this stuff has to be decided before the next disruption occurs. There's a whole lot of work that has to be decided. That's why we don't think that next disruption is not imminent, and I don't think it's going to happen this year. It could before August 15th, but I don't think so. But either way, all this other stuff has to happen. We've been saying that. Everybody's been saying that. Nobody thinks that the great next disruption, consolidation of power, realignment wave, none of that happens after all this happens. Having said that, everything that is happening now has to, I'm trying to figure out a way to say this. Perhaps you can get a kid's cheeseburger. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get a big, no blue cheese. I'm not going to do the blue cheeseburger. Look, we would take the L. I would take the punishment, but I'm not putting blue cheese on that. In the background of all this decision making, I'm going to be blunt. The Big Ten and the SEC are thinking about their future. Not in 2031, when the next playoff media contract, when it all happens again, when you got to figure out the playoffs and whatever happens with college football in 2031. I'm talking about their future in 27, 28, 29, and 30. The Big Ten and the SEC, I'm going to be blunt. I'm gonna get DMs. People are gonna get upset when whatever they are talking about with Yormark and Phillips, whatever they're saying to them, in the back of their minds, they're also thinking about their own self-interest and how it pertains to their conference for 27, 28, 29, 30. So, number one, it's why I think that 16-team playoff format is going to be either happening all at once or it's going to be easy to get to that format. They're going to structure that in there. If it doesn't start at 16 teams in 2026, it's gonna be an easy flip. But number two, when it comes to the auto bids, what the problem of a compromise going from 3-3-2-2-1 or whatever any other format other than the 4-4-2-2 is if it is an auto bid format that isn't 4-4-2-2-1, then the Big Ten and the SEC are going to make sure that it is built into the system, into the playoff agreement, that it easily can go back to what they wanted, a 4-4-2-2-1. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? They're sitting there socializing this 4-4-2-2-1. They continue to do it. Big Ten continues to push it. If they compromise and go to a 3-3-2-2, they're going to have language written in there that quickly goes to a 4-4-2-2 because the Big Ten and the SEC believes that there is going to be a very good opportunity that they're going to grow a little bit more in membership and a little bit more in consolidated power. I'm just being honest. Those conferences believe there's going to be a change. And there's no way those two conferences are going to go add a couple of members, add a couple of big football values, get more, and then have to battle to go back up to 4 automatic bids, which they want right now. That is another reason why we believe it's going to start out at 4-4-2-2, regardless if it's 14 or 16. Happy to take the L, happy to eat the cheeseburger. But if we get a compromise starting in 26 of a 3-3-2-2, there's going to be language written in there that it's going to easily change. So either way, look, I don't like any of these automatic qualifying bids other than the conference champions. I loved how we had it last year. I'm going to love how we have it this year. But what I love is going away, unfortunately. So put down your comments. We're going to open up the phone lines. The Big 12 will grow again. Same thing with same thing. Correct. Same logic for the Big 12, Greg. As they will have an opportunity to potentially grow. So they would want the potentiality of their whatever auto bid number that they're going to have in 26, that there's going to be some sort of switch to where that will increase. So, everything that they're working out now, great. 25, I'm not even talking much about 25 because it's going to be exactly like it was last year, or there might be a straight seeding. But for 26, we're getting out of bids. I think we're going to get a 4-4-2-2. Other people think we're going to get a 3-3-2-2. Whatever they're working on right now, though, there's going to be some of the ability to switch it up if they need to. Because going back to Ross Dellinger article, and let me see. Here it is. The fact that the SEC and the Big Ten haven't rammed through the multi-automatic qualifiers of 4-4-2-2-1 format is telling. Despite work on the model from each of their conference staffs, both of them, Big Ten, SEC, wide support from their athletic directors, Big Ten and SEC, both of them, and presidents, SEC, Big Ten, both of them, the conferences have yet to formally take the procedure steps to adopt the format. Why haven't they? One, they do feel the need to compromise. Or two, they feel the need to take everyone's input and considerations in, and then they're going to bring the hammer. Let me know what you think is going to happen here in the playoff format going forward. The phone number is 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. Talk about anything in college football that your heart desires. Anything you want to talk about. Again, we had the playoffs. We had the draft last. What's going on here? We had the draft last night. We went through the results. A lot of people are talking about Shedeur Sanders. Some are saying Sanders not being drafted out of the first round is not a fall. It's not a free fall. A lot of executives predicted that was going to happen before last night. Let's see here. Barry Trammell. The 2025 NFL Draft began Thursday night, and no sooner Cowboy or Golden Hurricane Tulsa was selected in the first round. No surprise, the talent level in Norman and Stillwater has been declining for a few years. Out of the 32 first-round draft picks last night, 15 of them came from the SEC, 11 of them came from the Big Ten, 26. Check it out. According to ESPN's Heather Dinich, TV ratings could potentially factor in the criteria for automatic college football playoff bids. We talked about that on our live show yesterday. More importantly, we went into great detail on that on our episode 56 of Cloak and Dagger, members only episode. Become a member. You can go watch that episode. We released it yesterday. The old TV ratings on why that could be part of that criteria, we went into that. Steel Austin says 5-5-1-1-1-2. That ain't gonna happen. At least not now. Mr. Monkey says, I think it just should be 16 SEC teams. Greg, do you have Cup fever yet? No, I don't. Nope, I'm going to watch the Timberwolves tonight. They're going to win Game 3 against the Lakers. Look, Tony, I don't know what to say, man. If the Minnesota Wild ever did win the Stanley Cup, the state of Minnesota would probably collapse onto itself. It would be the biggest celebration. I mean, it would. The sound coming out of the state of Minnesota, if the Minnesota Wild won the Stanley Cup, would be thunderous to where you would hear it all over the country. From Miami to Piscataway to Seattle. to Los Angeles. But Tony, I get it. Every Minnesota fan is opening up their hearts, opening up their rib cages. Their hearts are now wide open. If you look into that heart, it's all filled with scars. Everyone's getting their hopes up. I get it. I cannot afford to get myself there yet. I can't start believing yet. I can't. Maybe, Tony, you may be younger than me. You may not be battered and bruised. But I can't go there yet. Can't do it. Bigger reaction. Vikings win the Super Bowl or Wild win the Stanley Cup? The bigger reaction would be Vikings win the Super Bowl. But the Vikings win the Super Bowl, the reaction in the state would be like other reactions across the country. But the Minnesota Wild winning the Stanley Cup would be like the Montreal Canadiens winning the Stanley Cup back in the 70s. I mean, it would, like, look, I'm not trying to, wherever the Stanley Cup is won, it's a great time for that city, for the fans. So I don't want to disparage. But what will happen in Minnesota if the Wild win the Stanley Cup is going to be a whole lot different than what happens when the Tampa Bay Lightning wins their Stanley Cups. And they've won more than one. Yeah, Tampa Bay celebrated. It ain't going to be nothing like what Minnesota does. And I'm not talking about, what I'm trying to say is, I'm not talking about just the Twin Cities. Like in other places when they win the Stanley Cup, it's that, it's that major city where the franchise is located. They're going to be out in the streets. If the Minnesota Wild win the Stanley Cup, it ain't going to be just the Twin Cities. It ain't going to be just the South Metro. It ain't going to be just Rochester. It's going to be Duluth. It's going to be Coquet. It's going to be Grand Rapids. It's going to be the Iron Range. It's going to be all over the place. The whole state of Minnesota. Northern Minnesota, it's going to be just unbelievable. The videos, if that ever happens, the videos that come out, this is the state of hockey. It doesn't win, but it's the state of hockey. You've got more people. You got more people in the state playing hockey, growing up playing hockey, have all the memories of hockey, going to hockey games than any other state. I mean, it's not even close. And if this state ever won the Stanley Cup, it would be, Duluth would implode. The whole state would implode. Gonna be like the Iran underground nuke test, earthquake. Mr. Monkey says, should be 16 Big 12, 16 SEC, 3 Big East, 1-1-1-1-1-1-1. The NCAA basketball tournament. You might got a point there. Lubbock almost burned down to the ground when Tech got to the finals in basketball. Okay, phone lines are open. Give us a call. Anybody want to give us a call? Oh, there's going to be a little bit of rioting. Probably not much. But there will be, there is going to be, the amount of beer drank, it's going to be a party. It's going to, if that ever happened, I can't go there. Look, the Minnesota Wild are up 2-1 on Las Vegas in round one. And fans are already starting to, These young Minnesota fans, these youngins out there who don't know what it is, they don't know the reality of the situation. This is Loserville City, and I am the mayor. So they've got to overcome decades of history of losing. They got to overcome Greg the Cooler. I don't know if it's even possible. I cannot get there yet. I cannot believe in it yet. Again, we went through the NFL draft of last year. Last night. It's 2 times I've done that today. Cam Ward, number 1. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Will Campbell, Mason Graham, Ashton Genty, Membu, McMillan, Banks, Loveland, Williams, Booker going to the Cowboys. Kenneth Grant going to the Dolphins. Warren to the Colts. Jalen Walker from Georgia to Atlanta Falcons. Walter Nolan, Arizona Cardinals. Shamir Stewart, the Bengals. A little bit of a gamble. Gray Zambell, the Bison, Seahawks. Ibuka, the Buccaneers. Barron going to the Broncos. Derek Harmon going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There was a great... Derek Harmon, man, he's gone through a lot lately. He talked about it in an interview. His mother's had some difficult times. It was reported she had a stroke. She's in a coma. Derek Harmon used his NIL money to help his mother out with transportation and to be able to get her to place and. An incredible story. Derek Harmon drafted first round of the NFL, Oregon Duck. Congratulations to Derek Harmon. Amarian Hampton, running back, Chargers, Matthew Golden. Packers, Donovan Jackson, Buckeye to a Viking. Jackson Dart, the second QB drafted. Mississippi, Ole Miss, going to the New York Football Giants. James Pierce, Atlanta Falcon. Malachi Starks, Raven. Williams, Lions. Connerly, Commanders. Harrison, Bills. Jihad Campbell, Eagles. Josh Simmons, OT, Buckeye, to the Kansas City Chiefs. Going to see if there's any reporting going on here. What is this? Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Yeah, I'm going to have to hold off on that. Might be getting some news here. Might be getting some news. Might be getting some news on the old Sacramento State. And what's the next on their process? What's the next thing they do here? Loserville Theater. That we don't need to do that. The studio is the Loserville Theater. There's too many cheeseburger stuff going on though. I would have done that, but I'm in threat of eating cheeseburgers before that would ever happen, Dante. I'm not going to eat a cheeseburger on that if that happens. That should be a beautiful thing. I should enjoy it. I'm not going to ruin it with a cheeseburger.
From
Rick?
Rick, the floor is yours. How are you doing, sir?
We're doing good.
Good.
Ready for the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big story here is the no story. We were told well in advance that nothing was going to come out of this meeting. And sure enough, it lived up to its bill. And they all got together and did nothing except justify those juicy steaks and fine wine on the expense account. Put that on the expense account. But it had long been reported that nothing was going to come of this.
Yep, that's true.
And that's what happened.
Yep, yeah.
And then you've got another expense account reporter, sometimes shill, Dellinger, using his company's expense account to report all the nothing and give us anonymous sources reporting nothing.
Well, first of all, they have to be anonymous sources. I mean, I don't know if he gave us nothing. It wasn't anything. He did say that. Well, he did tell us they had dinner, but he also said that the Big Ten and the SEC continue to socialize. They continue to push the four, and I get what you're saying. There wasn't a whole lot there, but at least we got something. Not a lot, but we got something.
But you told us weeks ago that Sankey and Petiti were going to play Mutt and Jeff, and they did.
Yeah, but they may, at the end of the day, they may not feel, Sankey and Petiti, they may not feel that it's worth the cost to actually do what they want. And they have the power to do it. Maybe it's not worth the cost. Maybe it just isn't going to be worth the cost. Now,
and maybe it's good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, it could be. Yep. Now, again, it's so it's like they're all weighing the cost of everything. Like the Big Ten, their media partners want this to happen. And according to Ross Dillinger's article, there's wide support among the presidents, athletic directors in the Big Ten and the SEC for this to happen. But as they try to punch this through, maybe there is something there that isn't worth. Maybe they're going to hold off on it. Maybe they're going to hold off until this thing goes to 16. We shall see. And if they do, I'll take the big L on it, because I said 4 automatic qualifiers start in 26.
Right.
But maybe there's something there. Go ahead, sir. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's all right. This is just no big deal if you wind up taking the L. That's no biggie. But
I got to eat a cheeseburger. That's a big deal. That's horrible. It's great for you guys. It's an abomination.
Smother it in chili.
I don't think I think it's got to be a straight cheeseburger. If the Big Ten doesn't get their 4 automatic qualifiers starting in 26, I will negotiate with the PATC family. We'll put up some polls, and we'll see if any of you guys let me put on a tomato, on a lettuce, a mayo. It's going to be up to you guys on how we structure this cheeseburger, what type of cheese. But I'm not, it's not going to be blue cheese. I'm not going to do that. I would get sick and die right here in the studio.
Yeah, I think there's a law against that in Minnesota.
So, yeah, we'll see. Again, in the Ross Dellinger article, it did not give us a whole lot. It did give us that the Big Ten and the SEC continue to socialize, and there's wide support within both conferences of the 4-4-2-2-1, which we have said, but they haven't rammed it through. To be honest, they haven't rammed it through. It's not a done deal. They're still taking on ideas. And what's the motivation of that? Is it just to be good cop, like to bring on input and ideas, or is there a general concern that the cost, that the squeeze, that the juice is not worth the squeeze at this point?
Well, I think it's just I think the sole purpose was to hopefully, which they did not do, but resolve this year's playoff.
Mm-hmm.
And any negotiation that might take place that would change this year's playoff from last year's playoff. And it's not going to happen because the Big Ten and the SEC aren't giving up anything. They're not giving up what they achieved, for 26 and beyond. But the fact that they couldn't, all of them together, couldn't decide, okay, well, nothing's going to change, so let's just agree that this year will be the same as last year. I mean, what's the problem here?
Yeah.
And if it's going to change, it's not going to be negotiated. It's either we all agree it's going to change, or we all agree it's not going to change. Well, now let's have another meeting next month and order the steaks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And again, I think the worst part of all is the fact is they told you, it was reported, with again using Dellinger as the tool he is. He told us weeks ago nothing's going to come out of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Good reporting.
Yeah.
Nothing did come out.
All righty, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
You got it. Appreciate it, Rick. Yeah, I think the reporters were told that. Thank you for the call, Rick. Beautiful. I think that the reporters were told that there was going to be a lot of, a lot of talking, a lot of socializing on the ideas and going forward. That there weren't going to be any decisions made, but eventually they got to be made, right? Eventually they got to be made. Hazard, County, Cyclone, Greg, aren't these conferences all supposed to work together in governance as equals? No, they're not equals. Can't call yourself equals when the Big Ten and SEC demand 2 times the playoffs access. Well, they're not equals at us governance. That's the point of it. The battle was raged, and the Big Ten and the SEC have more power than the Big 12 and the ACC. To the point where the Big Ten and the SEC, their accumulated power, have enough to do the if they wanted to, they dictate what the playoffs are going to look like in 26. But there are other, there are other things in play here, and it sounds like the Big Ten and the SEC are, well, again, if you take this article written by Ross Dellinger, there is there's something there for everybody, right? Like this part. The fact that the SEC and the Big Ten haven't rammed through the 4-4-2-2-1 format is telling. It's either that they're afraid of the cost. They really want to bargain something else. But then it says, despite the work on the model from each of the conference staff, wide support from the athletic directors and presidents, and the conferences, they have yet to take the formal procedure steps to adopt the format. There's wide range of support for the 4-4-2-2-1. Again, as we have reported here at Peek Around the Corner, this is what they want. They've already gamed it out in a lot of different ways. But they haven't started the procedural steps to adopt it yet. And that could be because they don't want the costs associated with ramming it through. Or they haven't started the procedural steps because it was never in the plans to start the procedural steps at this time. As Rick just got done saying, the reporters have been saying, not just Dellinger, but everybody else, don't expect anything, don't expect any decisions to be made at this point. And they've been saying that for weeks. So maybe there was never a plan to start the procedural steps to ram through a 4-4-2-2-1-1 at this point. I don't know. Again, there's enough there for people to take a little bit of what they want. Expedition Greg, thank you so much for the gift and membership. I do appreciate it. Big Ears Bowl, when you get an opportunity, please say thank you to Expedition Greg for his generosity. Mr. Buckeye, I do appreciate it. I appreciate all the support you have given us. Thank you so very much. Big Ears Bowl, you are officially knighted, cloak, and dagger. Lots can happen with realignment. And again, all these discussions in the back of all these guys' minds as they're talking about the college football format, playoff format, there's going to have to be some flexibility built into it going forward. Right? I mean, you could have material realignment change. You're probably going to have it. So with that, however they decide to do the format would have to be changed, including the automatic qualifiers, right? Cowboys got a pancake machine, Numbskull News. Sanders going in the second round.
From
Numbskull News.
Numbskull News is on the line. The floor is yours. Go ahead, sir. What do you got going on?
Well, as a big-time Cowboys fan, because here in Cowboy Land, we with the 12 pick, we got a Alabama guard. People don't realize he's a pancake machine.
Got it.
People
Yes.
want the sexy pick, right? People want the wide receiver. They wanted Tyler Warren. That's all good as long as you can keep your quarterback upright, And in our situation with Dak Prescott sucks unless he has a run game. When he has a big-time run game, he's really good. So we have a coaching staff that know that, and this is the third year in a row we've picked inside offensive linemen. That's not sexy, but damn it, that's how you build a winner. So I just wanted anyone out there who's in Cowboy Nation to know I'm not a Crimson Tide fan, but I know a big old monster truck when I see it.
Yeah.
It plows the road. And that's how you build a winner. And as far as the CFP stuff goes, Big Ten and SEC, I don't know. I get a feeling that maybe they're being, they got media partners out there. They got ESPN. They're kind of a big one.
Yep.
And if they have issues, things tend to slow down, Greg. And maybe the Big Ten and the SEC don't have all the say everyone seems to think.
Well, I often say, I often say that the Big Ten doesn't always get what they want. We've got a long history of that, but they have been pushing for the for the 4 AQs, and we think we're going to get them. But if they don't, then I got to eat a cheeseburger. But again, ESPN is the one that's paying for the playoffs for right now. So again, if it sounds like ESPN, according to this report, is in favor of going to a 14-team playoff, and
they are or are not.
They are in favor, along with sounds like everybody else. So the 14-team playoffs is becoming, sounds like it's becoming more and more of a reality here, with 16 still on the table. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know where I've stand before. Mm-hmm. I don't care who gets what, as long as the Big 12 gets 2. Utah, get me 2. I want 2 playoff spots.
Yeah.
I don't care that the Big 10 get 4. I don't care that the SEC, they draw the eyeballs, fine. Some Big 12 fans have to get over this. Like, what do they deserve? I'm like, well, have 4 million people a week watch your team, and then you can gripe. And the Big Ten just has monster ratings, and so does the SEC. It's the reality of the situation. The Big 12 draw respectable numbers, but it's not on that level. So I understand that. You don't even need, this whole talk about you have to put TV ratings into the mix when deciding who goes to the playoffs kind of junk. You don't even need that. I don't mind them at all having 4 automatic qualifiers as long as we get 2. That's pretty simple.
I mean, as a fan, as a college football fan, I don't want any of this other than the conference champions. I love how we have it now. As a fan, I don't want any of it. I don't want 2 automatic qualifiers for anybody. But the reality, and under the reality of what's about to happen, I get your position that, okay, give us 2, that's fine. As a fan, like I'm just talking as a college football fan, I don't want any of these automatic qualifiers, except for the conference champion. Like, I loved how it just happened. But then again, I'm going to go ahead and say what we believe is going to happen here at Peek Around the Corner. And, the Big Ten has been pushing for 4, and we think they're going to get what they want. And it's because of a whole bunch of issues. It's their media partners. It's their presidents. They've gamed this out with SEC, which we have reported. Ross Dellinger basically just said that in this article. But there is something there that, possible governance, other situations, other things that they may be stalling on. But if we do go to 16 teams, I do not, and if we have automatic qualifiers, automatic bids per conference, which sure sounds like we're going in that direction, right? If you go to 16, I don't know. At that point, I think it's going to happen at 14. But when we go to 16, I don't know how the Big Ten and the SEC don't get 4 each at that point, because that's 50%. They're getting over 50% of the distribution money. They have over 50% of the power, with governance. Why wouldn't they have at least 50% of the bids in their world and how they think of things when we go to 16? I happen to think they're going to get what they want at 14, but it hasn't happened yet. Numbskull News. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we're in a holding pattern right now, so it's just pure speculation.
Yeah.
But I think I may have a clause. You said no. I don't know if anyone's tried to give you some kind of answer as far as the Notre Dame question you've been asking.
Yeah.
As far as how can they continue to be independent with NBC and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a running theory, which is I think they can do a deal with the Big 12 for at least double what the ACC has given them, because I think ESPN would value that. That's games within the Big 12, and I think Fox would look at it as, hey, that's good for us as well. So the only thing they have to worry about is can they schedule Big 10 and SEC teams. And I actually think they would want to. I actually think NBC wants them to stay independent because they gobble up a good percentage of Notre Dame content that way. And as much as and NBC's been complaining about their Big Ten content, like they're not getting enough premium matchups for what they like, for the money they're paying, it kind of makes sense that they would want them to stay independent so they can at least have that. Because even if Notre Dame just plays Army and Navy, those games, they draw big money.
I mean, they're historic rivalries and all that, but no. Okay, so first of all, I appreciate you giving an answer. Lewis, the Duke's Blue Devil, he's given a great answer on how Duke can maintain football independence when the ACC loses their top brands. He believes there's enough juice there, and I think you're saying sort of the same thing, that Notre Dame would have enough juice there to maintain football independence. They would able to maintain a football schedule that would give them the top tier compensation from NBC. And you may be right, and Lewis may be right. I first of all, and I've done a few live shows here where I'm trying to establish. Jack Swarbrick has said it. Bavakwa has said it. Maintaining the compensation from their media partner to try to at the level that they need to try to win a national championship, not just in football but in their other Olympic sports, is vital to them. Notre Dame is not taking a step backwards. Just like USC refused, because they had an opportunity. USC was not going to be stopped at getting to that revenue stratification line that they needed to be able to compete at the highest level. That's why they called the Big Ten. Same thing with Texas and Oklahoma. Same thing with Notre Dame. As much as they value their football independence, they're not going to take a step backwards. They're not going to go backwards. So if there is enough juice there, if they're able to maintain their level of payment from NBC while losing to Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, potentially Miami, then maybe they can keep their football independence. As Jack Swarbrick has said, as Bavakwa has said, and Jack Swarbrick has said this many times, we just had a live show on it, it's also important for Notre Dame to maintain a good home for their Olympic sports. If they can't, then they're going to have to move their football program out of that independent status and probably go to the Big Ten. If the ACC loses to North Carolina, if they lose to Florida State, if they lose to Clemson, if they're a threat to lose Miami, is the ACC still good enough for Notre Dame to be a good home? And Jack Swarbrick said a good home is being able to compete, get the most exposure, and to be able to win national championships with those Olympic sports. Notre Dame left Hockey East to join the Big Ten in hockey. We were the ones that broke that news. We here, I did. We were given the information. We put it out there twice. That I can't believe it. Delaney's talking to Notre Dame. So we know all the reasons why Notre Dame called the Big Ten. It was a travel issue. The smallest smallest competitive edge. Notre Dame thought they lost the competitive edge against the other Hockey East teams because all the other Hockey East teams never had to take an airplane when they went on the road, except to Notre Dame. Notre Dame had to take an airplane, had to go on the road on every Hockey East game. And just that slight disadvantage, plus the exposure disadvantage, they decided to call the Big Ten. So Notre Dame is looking at this constantly. What is the best home for Olympic sports, and are we getting enough money to compete at the highest level? Is there enough juice, like you said, Numbskull News, for Notre Dame to maintain their football independence? Maybe. I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'm going to give it up to you, Numbskull News. But the idea that Notre Dame is sitting here with an ACC scheduling agreement in which they needed to have the top teams of the ACC play them to fulfill their obligations to NBC, because that's a sliding scale contract. If a Clemson and Florida State are able to go to the SEC, and now Florida State and Clemson are playing that SEC schedule, 9-game conference schedule that the SEC is probably going to go to, and they're having a crossover game with the Big Ten, the Clemson-Florida State's football schedules are going to climb in value, obviously, versus what they are right now. The money that they're going to get is going to climb over the years versus what they get right now. Notre Dame's football schedule, no disrespect to everybody else out there in the country, is going to go down in value, go down in money. And is Notre Dame going to be satisfied with that? I'm going to bet that they're not going to be. Other people are betting that they're going to be just fine. We shall see. Numbskull News, go ahead, sir.
Now, I don't really have a good answer as far as their Olympic teams, their Olympic sports. Now, I don't know what the Big 12's Olympic sports look like. Have no idea. I don't know if it's not good enough at all to help them compete. Not sure. I know football and basketball is. Now, as far as viewership, I mean, there's more viewership with Notre Dame versus Florida State, Miami, and Clemson than any of the Big 12 teams, except for right now, Colorado. But it would make sense to me that ESPN would almost want to encourage Florida State and Clemson to keep playing games with Notre Dame. Like if the SEC takes Florida State and Clemson, that's kind of my speculation on it. But if that happens, like to me, why wouldn't ESPN want them to continue playing games with Notre Dame? That way they don't lose all Notre Dame content by them joining the Big Ten.
Well,
kind of head off the Big Ten at the pass a little bit.
Okay, but I can understand that, and I respect that. It's just that if Florida State and Clemson goes to the SEC, they're going to be playing 9 conference games, and they're probably going to be playing against a Big Ten team. So this ain't gonna be like Notre Dame ain't gonna be able to play. Notre Dame is not gonna get shut out from playing any of these top brand teams. That's not gonna happen. But it's again, how does Notre Dame maintain the value of their home schedule now versus losing those top? I mean, USC they've been public about it. USC, after 2027, is not going to be playing Notre Dame every year. Once in a while they will, but they're not going to be playing Notre Dame every year, just based on the 9 Big Ten conference games, not even including that possible crossover with the SEC. So Notre Dame is already losing the annual season with games with USC. So it ain't like Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to be playing some really good quality teams, football, home games, but they're going to be dropping backwards a little bit, at least. And Notre Dame wants to play teams that have their alumni in those locations. Notre Dame has had a national. They have a national team. They've been independent so they could play everywhere, wherever they wanted to do, because they got alumni, they got fans in the Boston area, the East, the South, Los Angeles, Chicago. They got it everywhere. So they have to go and play everywhere. Unfortunately, when it comes to the Big 12, their markets aren't where the Notre Dame fans are. So I don't know if that would work. Maybe it will. Maybe I'm wrong. But I want to get back to Numbskull News. I want to get back to the Olympic thing here. We went through this article of Swarbrick in 2022. Swarbrick, midway through, if you look at the screen, goes back, there's three considerations on why maybe they would pull the trigger to move Notre Dame football out of independence. One was maintaining a committed partner that they would get national exposure, plus enough money. Number two was playoff access, which is never going to be a problem for Notre Dame. And this is the third one. Third is a good home for our Olympic sports, where they can compete for national championships, but also have schedules that sort of make sense for them. The ACC has been a great partner for us in that regard. I'd like to make progress on that schedule front. It's so hard for our kids to travel the way they do. I think we've talked about it before, but when we're going to Tallahassee and you start with a bus trip to Midway and then you connect once along the way before you get there, and then you're on a bus trying to get to campus, it's probably 18, 16 hours that you've been involved in traveling. Swarbrick has talked a lot about the difficulties of going to Tallahassee. And this, like he said, even in this interview, it's not the first time he's talked about it. So if Notre Dame, again, I understand the 135 history of football independence. I get it. But in the age of more and more consolidation of power, in where the ACC could implode here, where schools are scattered to the Big Ten, the SEC, and eventually to the Big 12. How does Notre Dame, I don't believe, is willing to take a step back in exposure, in revenue, in the ability to compete at the highest level? That's why I don't think they're going to settle for an ACC 2.0, playing a bunch of private schools where everything is going to be smaller for them. I don't think they want to go on a smaller stage, and they're not going to have to, because the SEC would take them in the heartbeat. The Big Ten would take them in a heartbeat. But we shall see. We're going to find out in the next few years here at Numbskull News. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry to take up so much of your time. You get as much time as you want.
It's no problem. My thought is, I don't know. I guess I'm seeing it as a 50-50. It kind of depends on. Again, it's if the SEC, I should say if ESPN is like, you know what, let them go to Fox, then I think a lot of that could be right.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think if ESPN's like, how should I say, we get more money, it benefits ESPN if Notre Dame stays independent. There are ways ESPN can massage that and work something out with SEC schools.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the SEC don't really want to do that, like you said, there's tough schedules to be had in the SEC already, and especially when you're going to a ninth conference game and all that. But if you look at Texas's or Tennessee's schedule last year, I mean, it was cupcake and I think the SEC is a lot deeper than the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at that, you're like, okay, I think a lot of it is going to fall to what ESPN wants to do.
Okay.
Or they want to help Notre Dame stay independent because they can.
Yep.
In multiple different ways.
Yep.
But if they're going to, if they're like, well, we got other fish to fry, we're not going to worry about Notre Dame, then you may very well be right. So I think a lot of this is going to sway behind the scenes on what these big media partners want to do.
Yep. Yep, and I think all this is playing in the background, Numbskull News, when they're not talking about it when they're having their steak and wine, those four commissioners, like Ross Dillinger reported. But in the back of the minds of a Petiti and a Sankey, they're thinking about the future of their conferences when they're talking about the future of the college football playoff format, right? Now I know you've had shows on this. I've had shows on this, on what's going to happen in the future when it comes to this next disruption. I call it the next realignment wave. Again, I think it's all going to be about blends. I think everyone's backs are going to have to get scratched. I think the SEC president's backs are going to have to get scratched. I think ESPN's backs are going to have to get scratched. I think Fox's back is going to have to get scratched. I think the Big Ten president's backs are going to have to get scratched. So how all this plays out with the blending, getting everybody to check off the boxes, but whatever happens, I still think we're going to go with more consolidation. Unfortunately, again, as a football fan, I do not approve, but as a person who has to report on what we think is going to happen, more consolidation, more power, more consolidation, and I think we're going to have a major disruption in 27 and 28, and I happen to think Notre Dame is going to be a part of it. I'll let you finish it up, sir.
Well, look, you make very valid and logical points about Notre Dame. You know, as always, being a turd that I am, I'm always going to question things, and I'm always kind of, it's my thing. You know, I'm a turd. I'm going to go against the grain a little bit.
You should.
I'm going to push back on a lot of reporting.
You should.
Not always, but sometimes that's where I find my little niche anyway in this whole thing. But like I said, I always respect you, Greg. I respect your sources. I don't think you're a mouthpiece for anybody or anything like that. I think you come to your own conclusions with the information that you're given. Of course, I don't get information. I just, I just read tea leaves out here. That's all I'm doing. I got my tarot deck, and I'm going for it.
You do a great job, sir. I appreciate it, my man.
All right. Well, appreciate you, Greg. Appreciate the show, and keep going.
You got it. You too, sir.
All right.
Beautiful call. I do apologize. Apologize in Umskull News. I took a lot of his time, but him and we go back and forth, and so I appreciate the phone call. Hold on one moment. Hold on.
Call from
AZ Buckeye.
AZ Buckeye, the floor is yours. How you doing, sir? Thanks for calling.
Very good. Thank you, Greg. I just want to put forth that when you really think about it, Notre Dame really gave up a bit of its independence when they signed that contract with the ACC. It's kind of a myth that they're independent. They're really only about 25% different than everybody else when you think about it.
Yeah.
Every school gets to pick 3 games on their own. That's 25% of your season. They got 5 games they're locked in with a league. 6 if you count Stanford. 9 out of 12 games are no different than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really only about 25% independent. And I think that they've already made a leap there. So
yes.
That's all I wanted to say. I think that the idea of football independence is largely overblown because they're really not.
Let me piggyback off that statement. Beautiful statement. Absolutely true. And why did Notre Dame do that, AZ Buckeye? Because they had to. That's the point. They had to have a scheduling agreement. They had to make sure that they got that scheduling agreement so they can maintain some sort of level of home football value to their media partner. Because as a standalone product, you are way more riskier to your media partner than when you are a part of a conference and all your content is bundled together. Notre Dame needed to have a scheduling agreement with the ACC. Now, to maintain their football independence, or somewhat of it. Now, let's take it the next step. What if they lose that scheduling agreement and are not able to play those top ACC brands that are in that rotation to ensure they can fulfill their obligations to NBC? then it all goes away. Their ability, it all just kind of goes away. The walls continue to close in. They've already closed in on Notre Dame. They've already had a compromise in football independence. It ain't like what it used to be, where they had complete independence. They don't have that anymore. And I think more consolidations push it is in even a little bit more. Beautiful comment. Go ahead, Buckeye.
No, that's it. I mean,
All
that's
right.
the narrative they kind of push. I mean, they don't state it that way. They make it seem like it's 100%, but it's really not.
No.
Thanks, Greg.
You got it. Appreciate it. Great call by Numbskull News and Easy Buckeye. Trying to look at the comments here. A lot of great comments. Big 12 will not get let out. No, they won't. With realignment, 5 SEC, 5 Big 10, 3 Big 12, 1 G5, 2 at large. Finely tuned. Here we go again. News from the Big 10 Syndicate. Ursery played high school and football in the Kansas City area. Some Chiefs fans wanted him. You know, I don't know. Ursery was, for those who don't know, the great offensive tackle for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. A few months ago, he was projected as a first-round draft pick. But, like, in the last few weeks, it was like, no, he wasn't going to get drafted in the first round. He's going to get drafted today. He was... Nobody had as much success against Abdul Carter of Penn State than Ursery. I mean, the guy was phenomenal. He is phenomenal. The only thing I read is Ursery maybe lacks the flexibility, upper body bend, something like that, to where he may have to be moved to a guard position, maybe the tackle position, maybe he's a little bit too much of a tweener to excel at the tackle position. I guess. I don't know. But what a great Golden Gopher. He'll be drafted today in the second round. Don't know who's going to get him. Would the SEC risk not having interconference games with the Big Ten by trying to keep Notre Dame out of the Big Ten through some kind of deal? Again, maybe. But so the SEC and the Big Ten have this advisory group, right? Ross Dellinger said it today. Ross Dellinger reported today that there is a wide way. There is an agreement. It's not like, how do I say this? I'll get back to that LA Gopher. Where is this? Right here. I mean, they've worked on the model from each of their conference staffs, wide support from their athletic directors and presidents on the 4-4-2-2-1 format. Now, it may not happen. And if it doesn't happen at 26, I'm going to eat a cheeseburger. But this has been socialized. It's been pushed by the Big Ten. And there's wide agreement in both of these conferences. Reported today. The SEC and the Big Ten have an advisory group. They've met a couple of times. They're always communicating now. They're working on a possible scheduling deal. Possible. An aggressive scheduling deal. It ain't going to be like 2, 3, 4 crossover games. They kind of already have that anyways. We're talking 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 interconference out-of-conference games between the two conferences all scheduled, and that would be a part of their TV agreements with Fox and ESPN. So when there's a Big Ten home game with the SEC opponent, the Big Ten's going to want to get paid a little bit more than they are now, according to their current agreement. And if there's a Big Ten team going to a home SEC team's location, where it's a home SEC game, the SEC wants to get paid a little bit more out of that. So if this, first of all, for this scheduling agreement to happen between the SEC and the Big Ten, the SEC is going to have to go to 9 conference games. All right? And now for this to happen, Sankey and Petitti's, they're going to have to get paid a little bit more by their media partners. They're going to have to get paid more by their media partners. And then the media partners are going to want something in return. Probably maybe an extension on their current media deals. But then you got to throw in these play-in games when it comes to these automatic bids. They're going to have play-in games. These conferences are going to get more money off of those. And this is why maybe the SEC is going to need, the SEC presidents are going to need a Florida State and Clemson to help grease the skids on a North Carolina-Virginia ad. Because North Carolina-Virginia ad doesn't do enough for ESPN. This is why we think it's headed in that direction. We may be wrong. But back to Notre Dame. Back to the question of LA Gopher. I think the SEC is doing, I don't think they're going to risk. I don't think the SEC is in the position or they have the incentive to protect Notre Dame anymore. It's correct. ESPN and ESPN and SEC have not been particularly favorable to Notre Dame to go to the Big Ten. But the SEC is now looking at more consolidated power. The SEC is most definitely looking at some of those ACC schools for further conference expansion. And that right there runs the risk of Notre Dame having to leave to go to the Big Ten. I don't think the SEC is going to risk their, how do I say this? This consolidated power agreement with the Big Ten to help Notre Dame anymore. But you know what? We could end up being wrong. But my answer to that is no, I don't think the SEC is going to risk it. The SEC is not going to, look, and again, it has to do with the amount of content. Notre Dame only has 7 home games, right? There's only so much room in that it's like the SEC ain't going to make as much money out of Notre Dame relationship as they are with the Big Ten relationship. There is so many disadvantages of being an independent football program. Like, there is so many disadvantages. The only reason why Notre Dame has been able to do it for 135 years is because they are a giant. Because they have a national brand. They've got fans everywhere. Because they are so valuable. They have been able to keep their football independence because of their incredible fans, the university brand, but it has been difficult. It has not been easy. It has not been open and shut. Just listen to their leaders over the last 25 years. They've had serious discussions. They have wavered And now things are changing more than ever, and it's going against their ability to maintain their football independence. It's not getting easier for them. It's getting more difficult. Notre Dame wants the ACC to survive and they want the ACC to survive in a way that gives them the ability to keep their football independence. I think it's highly questionable that is going to go in Notre Dame's favor. A lot of really smart people disagree with me. But there's going to be great changes up ahead. I happen to think, and again, I'm going to get yelled at because that is my job, is to get chewed out. I get that people don't understand or don't believe. They want to say I'm crazy. I get it. But North Carolina is wanted by Big Ten and the SEC. They just are. I don't know. The Big Ten might be crazy. The SEC might be crazy. They might be stupid. They might be stupid. They all might be stupid. But the idea that they both want North Carolina is not incorrect. It might be dumb, but it's not incorrect. They want them. Now, they might have to work with their media partners. They might have to have that right blend, right? We talk about that blend. People forget that we talk about it, but they need that blend. They might need that blend. But they want North Carolina. When North Carolina leaves the ACC, and they might not happen for a few years. I mean, we don't know. But when they leave, just the incredible impact that will have on this landscape. No, it's not going to quite equal when Texas and Oklahoma did, but it's going to equal what USC did. Because USC was, I don't know what you want to call it, the patriarch, whatever, of the Pac-12. North Carolina has been, even though they don't have as big a brand, they're not as valuable as Florida State and Clemson, they have been the power in the ACC. They have been the relationship with ESPN, Tobacco Road. When North Carolina leaves the ACC, and whatever comes with them, which I think is going to happen to be a lot, Clemson, Florida State, Virginia. But even if it's them just alone, if we wake up on August 15th, if we all wake up on August 15th, if James Davis wakes up, Dante Sanfermo, Helmer Henderson, Numbskull News, if we all wake up on August 15th and we hear the news that there's only one school, North Carolina, that has filed a notice of withdrawal to leave the ACC because they got a deal ready with the SEC or they got a deal ready with the Big Ten. And for whatever crazy reason, it's only them just alone. Just that alone is going to cause an enormous impact. And that is going to affect Notre Dame. It has to. It will. Notre Dame, whatever they're going to end up being, if they can maintain college football independence, then they're going to keep going, right? And I'm going to be wrong. During this next disruption, if Notre Dame is able to keep their football independence, I'm going to end up being wrong. But if they maintain it, it means they're not taking a step backwards. Because Notre Dame ain't taking a step backwards. They're not taking less money. They're not taking less exposure. They're not going backwards. They're not going to say, okay, we did not join the ACC 1.0, but we're gonna join an ACC 2.0 that is half the value, 1/3 of the value that is currently now. We're gonna go ahead and join that because we can be the boss. No. That's not Notre Dame. Notre Dame ain't going to take a step backwards. Anyways, we've been on the air for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I appreciate everybody coming on in. We did get our first couple of super chats. Helmer Henderson. I always figured SEC didn't really care about getting auto bids. Big Ten wants them to protect themselves from ESPN SEC bias influence, trying to stuff as many SEC teams in the playoff as possible. Thank you for the super chat, Helmer Henderson. But this isn't like the most important. The SEC's got some other issues that they need help with the Big Ten on. But the SEC is in favor of the 4 auto bids. They're just not the ones that keep pounding the table, keep leading them with their chins on it. Again, going back to Ross Dellinger's article. Of course, I always have the fact that the SEC and the Big Ten haven't rammed through the multi-auto bids of a 4-4-2-2-1 format is telling. Despite work on the model from each of their conference staffs, wide support from their athletic directors and presidents, the conferences have yet to formally take procedural steps to adopt the format. So the SEC does care about auto bids. They are in favor. Their athletic directors are in favor. Their presidents are in favor. But the Big Ten is playing the bad cop on this issue. The SEC is playing the bad cop on other issues. So again, today, as I have been reporting, the 4 is the one that the Big Ten wants. And the SEC is playing along, but they're playing the good cop on it. But they want it. Thank you, Helmer Henderson, for the super chat. Appreciate it so very much. Rock and Rant jumping in late, so maybe you covered, but is it possible the fan anger also impacting the auto bid situation from happening like the Big Ten wants? Yeah, fan anger. I guess. I mean, there's going to be, look, if they do it, there's a cost to it. A relationship cost with Yormark and Phillips. Maybe the ability not to get some other governance stuff that the Big Ten, the SEC wants. They have the power to do it, but are they willing to put up the cost? And maybe some of that is fan anger. Now, on this show, we do have quite a bit of a slice of Big 12 and ACC fans going, I'll take the 2. I'll take the 2. Look what happened last year. I don't know if we're going to average 2 automatic bids, 2 bids every year for the next 10 years out of 14 team. So I don't know how much anger there is. I don't like any of it, but the Big Ten ain't going to listen to me. I'm persona non grata with the Big Ten. Again, it's Ross Dellinger basically laid it out. They haven't rammed it through yet. And it's telling. Is there a compromise afoot? Or is this just part of the input taking, bringing in the considerations, and then eventually they are going to say, nah, this is what's going to happen. Thank you, Rock and Rant. Thank you for the super chat. Possible fan anger. Would think ESPN would want at least 4. Lewis, why won't the Big 12 and the ACC fiercely oppose the scheduling agreement with the Big 10 and the SEC that would essentially ice out those teams from playing SEC Big 10 in the regular season? They would probably fiercely oppose it. Now, there are scheduling agreements among conferences. Basketball and whatnot. I don't know. I mean, I guess somebody can file a suit, whatever. But then again, it's the Big Ten, SEC. You know, and it's not just the regular season scheduling agreement that they're going to try to work out. Again, there's some hurdles in trying to work that out. One, the Big Ten is saying to the SEC, you got to go to 9 conference games. Number two, ESPN and Fox is going to have to pay extra for it. But if they get all that done, that's not the only thing that the Big Ten and the SEC is trying to accomplish. They're trying to accomplish more bowl tie-ins between the two conferences. We're coming up to the end of all these bowl contracts. There is kind of this clean slate happening in 2026. So these bowl tie-ins, they're at the end of the contracts. You know, what the SEC, with the Big Ten, with the Big 12, with the ACC, their bowl tie-ins, who they play, the scheduling agreement among their bowl games. You know, this ACC team plays this Big 12 team in this bowl game. All that is disappearing in another year. All that has to be reworked, redone. So I do believe the Big Ten and the SEC, there's been public reports, they're looking at more bowl tie-ins together. But no doubt the Big 12 and the ACC are going to fiercely, I mean, they are. They're going to oppose this. Opie, for just here for 10 minutes, you can go back, Opie. You can go back and watch it all. Fox wants FSU. Toby said Padwick 332213. Tony Petitti's first call is always Greg the Gold for advice and counsel. That hasn't happened. It's never going to happen. The Big Ten does not like the fat guy from Minnesota. AMAC UNC leaving will cause the ACC dam to break. UNC to the SEC will start calling it the barbecue conference. Okay, we're going to close it up. We've been on the air for 2 hours and 22 minutes. I want to thank everybody who's joined us. Again, an early Friday, April 25th show. Expedition Greg, Hammer Henderson, Rock and Rant. Thank you so much for your generosity. Thanks for the phone calls. Thanks for everybody coming on in. Before you leave, make sure you subscribe to our channel and have those notifications turned on. We could be coming on live again later today. We've done it before many, many times. Breaking news, we will cover it here at Peek Around the Corner. This morning, we covered the breaking article of Ross Dellinger. Maybe not a whole lot of news. On the college football playoff meetings as they go back and forth. SEC, Big 10, Big 12, ACC. If you missed it, go back to the start of our live show. Thank you all for joining us. Please smash that like button before you leave if you've liked our content. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.